Can I start?
You can go now, yeah.
Yeah, sure, cool. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. In the capitalist world, we are raised to chase money as much as we can. In the Pokemon world, the children are raised to catch them all and to succeed catching the Pokemons and make them train them to be the best they can. I think the same thing applies to Team Rocket, and therefore the success is the most important thing for them in this debate. I'm going to analyze 3 things here in the debate. First, why the success is the most important thing for Team Rocket. Secondly, why they will never succeed catching Pikachu, therefore it's a huge failure for them to try to keep on chasing them. And third of all, why trying to catch Pikachu is just mutually exclusive with other ways of success which are much more plausible for them and can actually make them happy. Let's start with the first argument. Why is success the most important thing in debate? Look, first of all, the Team Rocket is belong to some company, and their boss is always looking down on them. They always tell them that they failed, they can prove themselves. They're always the stupid ones that didn't make it through anything. Therefore, they want to prove them wrong. They want to prove their bosses that they can do it, they can catch Pokemon, and they are useful workers. Second of all, the info slide literally said Pikachu is a symbol, meaning that Pikachu is not important for them as a character is itself. What is important is the symbol that comes with it. It's the success that comes with catching Pikachu. Therefore, we think that the success is logically prior to the specific character of Pikachu, and wherever they can get the more success, this is the symbol that they actually want. Third of all, just think that in this world, it's extremely competitive world. In the world of Pokemon, everyone are trying to catch all the Pokemon they can. They go to competitions since they are 6 years old or 7 years old. We think that the main narrative there is to try to catch them all and try to win, all the competitions. We think that there are measures on that since they are young ages. It means that they probably, Team Rocket was rejected from society when they were in young ages, and they are still rejected today, and they want to prove society otherwise. They're probably like, nobody picked me to play soccer, nobody picked them to play the Pokemon competition. They want to prove otherwise that they can catch Pokemon, they can be good trainers, they need to be back in society after being rejected for all of their childhood. For these reasons, we think success is the most important thing for them in a debate. The second argument, why they are not likely ever going to succeed catching Pikachu. First of all, just think Pikachu is a really hard character to catch, specifically. Why is it true? 3 reasons. A, he's just one of the strongest Pokemon ever existed. He's smart, he's physically strong. We think that in order to catch a Pokemon, you can't just throw a Pokédor, you need to make them, weaken them to almost die, and only then you can catch them with the Pokédor. We think it's almost unlikely to do it to Pikachu that is so strong, therefore we see that they fail to do it again and again in the series. Secondly, we just think that Pikachu is never alone. He's tied to Ash and the group. He's always surrounded by people that protect him, that can tell them that they should be careful because Team Rocket is around. Therefore, it's just really hard to throw a Pokédor on Pikachu without anybody seeing when he is in a weak position. He's always guarded. And third of all, just extremely loyal to Ash. They're his best friend. He can only trust Ash. Therefore, it's not likely they can convince Pikachu in some way to leave Ash and go with them. Second thing is that to think that they themselves have a lot of difficulties in trying to catch Pokemon, and specifically Pikachu. Why is it true? A, they just they don't have stronger Pokemons than Pikachu to actually make him weaken and try to catch him. Secondly, they have no allies and friends like Ash and the group. They're pretty much alone. They don't have anyone that can help them interfere with this group, to help them to make some complicated plans, complex plans. I think it's really hard for them to try to come up with new ideas after years of trying to catch Pikachu with failure. There are only 2 of them, and Meowth, which is out of ideas, it's really hard for them to come up with new ones. Third of all, they are really easy to recognize. They have a specific costume. They are always walking with this weird cat, weird talking cat. It's something that is unique in this world. It's really easy to stay away from them and to be careful and not letting them get close to you. First of all, they are just very stupid. We see it through the series. It's really, they're not complex mind people that can come up with good ideas. And fourth of all, they're just horrible in teamwork. They always fight with each other. It's unlikely they can come up with a good plan when they cannot even make a discussion with themselves. They would think even if they catch Pikachu, they're just unlikely to control him and do anything useful with Pikachu. I think Pikachu is the only autonomous, really autonomous Pokemon in this world. He makes his own decisions. He chooses who to be loyal to. Pikachu is not something that he cares about. He's not like every Pokemon. You can just catch him and then he's your forever in his loyalty. We think that Pikachu specifically is loyal only to Ash, and even if they catch him, he will run away in the first opportunity that Pikachu has. It means that they need to keep him in the Pokemon for the rest of their life. They can show their bosses that they caught him and nobody will believe them after failing to do so for years. We think that they don't get the feeling of control of Pikachu because they can't use them in training, in competitions, in anything at all, because he just run away in the first opportunity he has. Therefore, even if somehow they catch him, they won't be able to control him at all. Before I move to my second argument, third argument, take the audience.
Team Rocket, particularly these three individuals, have never entered in a competitive league. Even trainers don't focus on catching all Pokemon, they just focus on being the best battlers. Your characterization is flawed.
It's not to catch all Pokemon, it's to catch enough Pokemon that they are being worthy, that they will be told that they are good, that they are successful, that they can do something that is good. We think that by failing to try to catch the same Pokemon again and again, we think that this is exactly where they are unsuccessful people in this world that is so competitive. And also I think it is an assertion that they didn't try to go to competition when they were in young ages. I think it is completely assertion from side opposition. We think it is likely that as a part of this world, they wanted to be like Ash, they wanted to be a good trainer with good Pokemon, but they just failed to do so and were rejected by society. And this is how they end up there, and they want to fix it back and to be appreciated. The third argument, why it's mutually exclusive with other success. I think that first of all, although there are difficulties, they can still catch other Pokemon. Why it is true? There is natural Pokemon, the ones who have no protection and no deterrence from them. It's pretty easy to catch them. But secondly, even if they are really weak now, we think that Pokemon, what is unique in them, that they can evolve through time. They can train them and make them stronger. Even if they are bad trainers, there are external trainers that can pay them money and make them train their Pokemon. Therefore, we think they can catch a very weak Pokemon and make him through time very strong Pokemon that is even maybe stronger than Pikachu. Therefore, we just think that it is likely that they can catch other Pokemon and have good Pokemon in the future. Why is mutual exclusivity facing Pikachu? 4 reasons. A, just time. They have opportunity cost. They need to follow Ash, to make plans. It consumes so much time from them. We see them years spending all the time in trying to get Pikachu. They just don't have the time to go to other Pokemon, train them, do anything with them at all. Secondly, just everywhere building after loss. Every time they lose, they suffer from injuries. They suffer from no equipment. They need to fix it all the time. It also takes time. Third of all, is just the reputation of them is damaged because nobody wants to cooperate with them. And fourth of all, just Ash has an incentive to to protect everyone from them because they are so bad. If they weren't so bad, Ash wouldn't protect others, and it's more likely that they can actually do something. For this reason, we think it's uniquely for them to get success with other Pokemon. Please, Pokemon.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that excellent speech and invite the Leader of Opposition to start the case for opening opposition. Hear, hear.
Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. First of all, I'm not so sure why catching all of them is necessarily the incentive and why this is exclusive to these 3 members. Team Rocket has lots of people working for them. It's not just Jessie, James, and Meowth, right? You can assume that they specifically have multiple groups pursuing multiple types of Pokemon. That would be a very good strategy for an evil organization that is very imperialist and trying to pursue the power that is the maximum one, rather than the lame-ass strategy of dispersing 3 people for all. I don't think that this is reasonable to assume within this debate. I also don't know where the delta is if those 3 are not the only ones in the team in and of itself, if they already have other members pursuing other kinds of Pokemon. Probably catching Pikachu was Jessie, James, and Meowth's specific job that was given to them by their boss, which means that by not doing it, they would betray him more so than trying to be more strategic. I also am unsure where the delta is. If the Pokemon world is that strategic and that competitive, then I'm also not sure why they would be much better here. But I'll just dive into my substantive because it clashes very nicely. Here's a characterization of Team Rocket the way it actually is. Firstly, they're ruthless, confident, stubborn, and proud. Secondly, they prioritize the team spirit and fighting side by side. They like their friendship towards each other. Even if they do get into disagreements, they've spent ages together, and it's only natural that they significantly grow on each other, given that they have to spend 24 hours with each other. Given also how they care for the other when they get hurt in battles and so on and so forth, it is clearly not true that they hate each other, that they don't like working with each other, spending time with each other. They also have a significant incentive to stay in Team Rocket and make Giovanni, their boss, proud, because it's just simply their main career and because they're boss literally gives them their money, while they are also not the most strategic, the thing that keeps driving them towards pursuing Pikachu is their pride and their never-ending ambition towards glory and power. Even at the point where they fail over and over again, notice that their sheer willpower does not cease one bit. Giving up the chance of ever getting to the goal just goes entirely against their persona as a whole. I'll show why success is not the utmost strategy for specifically Jessie, James, and Meowth, despite what OG said. Notice how even when they lose, Team Rocket never trades off their displayed strong ego, even if they might be feeling like shit. They show immense amounts of perseverance and willpower by saying things like, we'll get you next time, or this isn't over, rather than showing any kind of weakness or vulnerability in front of anyone else but themselves. This clearly shows their utmost priority that supersedes the loss itself is avoiding humiliation. Even if they fail externally, the thing that keeps their guards up and keeps them going and gives them their persona is their confidence and ambition, the will to never give up, and the perception that they are superior and not weaker than anyone else. Giving up on the one goal they have been assigned to and they have been pursuing for ages since the get-go is a huge attack to their beings as a whole. This means that by putting it to a halt and giving up, they run the risk of their opponents thinking they gave up out of weakness, of their perception of being losers being set in stone, the one thing they have countlessly tried to avoid. Their entire built-up wall of we are strong and cannot be broken starts to crumble at the point where it becomes increasingly more known among the Pokemon community that they haven't really seen Team Rocket around the same way as before, or that they heard that they gave up on their goals, right? Literally giving their enemies enough material to make them seem pathetic and laughable, the biggest insult to their ego possible, not just to the average citizen, but this plays a significant role to Team Rocket as a whole. The way their other colleagues are likely to perceive them curl their lips in disgust because members of the one evil organization striving towards being the most evil and the most powerful chose weakness over perseverance. Every time they walk through their headquarters, having to see people look down in shame because of the rumors going out around, or snickering behind their backs, or their friends not wanting to associate with the losers of the company. In general, this will probably weigh extremely heavily on them in terms of mental health as well, feeling ashamed because they made a decision so unlike themselves that they never thought of making, which would lead them spiraling into doubting themselves, doubting their own strength, feeling like a fucking failure and feeling like a disappointment, which gets increased by the fact that everyone around them treats them like it as well. More so, we think it is not likely that Giovanni will take this lightly, nor think this is particularly good, which will end up in them losing their place in Team Rocket. Firstly, because of the fact that they betrayed him by not following through with his will. He asked them to do one job and they failed at that. Not in the sense of having externally lost, but having literally prioritized their own selfish fear over the organization's power and his orders as a whole, which is seen as a massive disrespect towards the organization and towards the boss. Secondly, because Giovanni probably doesn't want to associate with them now that they have been known to be people who give up. The reason why Giovanni didn't fire them until now, even though they did fail, can be multiple. Obviously, if he actually believed they were good for nothing and didn't have a chance at all, he wouldn't keep them around. The reason why that incentive isn't given yet is because A, there must be something that separates them from the rest, which would necessarily be their never-ending perseverance and willpower that is unique to them, that is extremely rare, and B, because even if they fail, they can still tell Giovanni things like, oh, external things have happened, like there were other kinds of ambush, there were this happening, this Pokemon superseded us, we didn't see this coming, and we were feeling really sick, or whatever kind of excuses that lead him to believe that it wasn't because they're failures, but because they literally couldn't. Once it becomes known that Team Rocket has entirely failed their goal, the only sensible thing for him to do to save the reputation of both him and the entire Team Rocket is to fire them, to completely detach from them and set a signaling effect that says, we are not associated with them, we have nothing to do with their display of weakness, they are traitors, and they have proven themselves not worthy of our team. They do not represent us, they do not represent me, they have betrayed me. We also don't think it would end there, because losing their job won't be the worst thing. It would be even worse because they probably can't find any other fucking job. So other evil organizations will not want to take in members that have been known to fail and let it get the best of them, which goes against the vengeful character of stereotypical villains as a whole, but also good organizations or normal organizations won't want to take in known villains either, those that have been especially scandalous, that have been known to go against the entire Pokemon community as a whole. So I think this will be incredibly shit. But before I come to team dynamics, I'll take a POI.
Yeah. How does it feel to believe you are superior to everyone else when they still see you as a complete failure all the time?
I mean, I think they can still construct their own reality by saying, oh, I can feel stronger than you. I am more superior than you. I think the one thing that keeps their pride is saying, we'll get you next time. They're not a failure if they have the chance to succeed next time. They're not a failure if they say, oh, the next time I succeed, I'll make everything worth it. It's going to be so bad, they're going to regret it, and everyone is going to apologize to me. The fact that they don't see themselves as a failure is because they have a shot at trying it again. It's because they can show everyone else that we're not the losers here, that they can say, I told you so. so. That is the specific thing that is missing in the debate. This is what they're striving towards. Also, I think the team spirit is being upheld the most with the mutual goal that binds them towards each other. Notice that they could have been fighting for any other Pokemon, but pursuing Pikachu himself was the mutual goal that bounded all the team members to each other. That is to say, throughout generations, throughout ages, I don't know how long they've been doing this for, but basically racking up strategies, traveling together, spending a lot of time together, trying to help each other pursue Pikachu, helping each other out of certain certain battles and helping each other when they get hurt in battles and tending towards each other. I think what that does is build an immense amount of team strategy and team spirit around the one goal that keeps them together and around the one goal that keeps them driving towards something in life, them mutually be able to talk about something, teamwork, them trying to build their own personality and their own strategies around this specifically, something that binds them together and something they can laugh about, like, oh, we'll get the next time. Oh, remember that past team strategy, we'll make it this way. I think this is something that is incredibly crucial to their being as a whole and as a team. Vote up.
I'd like to thank the speaker for what was an excellent speech and invite the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for side government. Hear, hear.
Okay, I'm audible.
You're audible.
Starting in 3, 2, 1, go. I'm going to talk mostly about the symbolism of loss and why they feel much, much worse under their side of the debate on government. I'm going to make an even if on that aspect as to why even if they fail catching other Pokemons under our counterfactual, they would still feel more successful, but also why they are likely to catch other Pokemons under the counterfactual. But before that, few pieces of rebuttal and framing. First, I want you to notice a very important concession brought up about multiple times in the DLPM speech. Quote, their most important priority is avoiding humiliation. We agree. This is literally the entirety of Lior's analysis as to why what they care about is success. However, the idea that the way to avoid humiliation is to continue doing this is weird for two reasons. Firstly, the direct rationale we are given from government is, oh, they have always done this. Look, from their past actions, we see that they chose to continuously do it over and over again, meaning that this reflects their incentive. This is not how active debates work, right? If this would be how active debates work, this debate would be literally God-heavy, and we respect our CA team, Alex, and we think that we set a very balanced motion. We think that likely how actors' motions work is not that what the actor did is always good for them, but sometimes Jess and James can be extremely stupid, and we are happy to defend that they made the wrong choice. But secondly, note, no rebuttal to the entirety of Lior's analysis as to why it is extremely likely that they continue failing at it, which is important because it makes the entire DPM speech ridiculously uncomparative, because they keep telling us how they feel like a failure when people continuously embarrass them, tell them that they gave up, tell them that they are bad. This happens already. They fail catching Pokemon despite Pikachu, despite continuing to try and try and try. Under our side, at least they have marginal success catching other Pokemon. Under our side, by the way, they don't even have to admit that they stopped chasing Pikachu. They can still say, we still try catching him and fail, because how would anyone know? Because they always fail anyway, but also catch other Pokemon on the way and have small goals to show for. Under our side, it is much less likely that people will shame them for it, because it is less seen as their main crux of their personality, and because their quote-unquote enemies won't have an incentive to embarrass them, right? Ash isn't a bad guy. If they stop trying to take his path, he has no incentive to try and embarrass them, right? We think that for all those reasons, A, it is likely that they are more embarrassed than the status quo, but B, that the main incentive that they have is stop being embarrassed, at which point the entire point about losing their job, yada yada, becomes a bit of clash because it's not the interest of the actor, but also we just don't think this is the main thing that they are being employed upon, right? The info site says that it is their personal goal for symbolism, not something that their boss told them. We also think, rationally speaking, it is likely that their boss would appreciate it if they actually brought home some work, if they actually brought home some Pokemon that they are able to successfully catch, rather than continuously waste his money trying to catch a Pikachu, which is impossible to catch. Let's talk about feeling of success, symbolism of failure. What happens when they try to catch Pikachu and fail over and over again? They get a lightning in their bum. They are physically blown into the sky. Team Rocket blasts off at the speed of light. Their boss grunts at them. They cry. We see this in every episode. They physically are shown to have tears whenever this happens. This is not only a physically painful experience, but also a humiliating one. Note what's the likely interpretation that they might have of it. A, up until this happens, they tend to continuously believe that they are going to make it. A, because government gives us a concession that they think that they are good at it and that they think they can succeed, meaning that they get a disappointment over and over again. They never get used to it. B, because we know in every episode, there is a point in which they have the upper hand, right? This is how TV series work in general even, right? There is always not an easy way for the hero. There needs to be a problem, a moment when it seems like the villain is going to win, and then they fail again. So it's always this roller coaster of feeling high and then getting just so low. And it's pointless to be high when it's such a long way down. We think that this is when A, they feel like they fail over and over again. B, they analyze why they fail because they try for their future plans to think, how am I going to catch Pikachu next time? So they go over their mistakes again. It is the same thing that people do when they think about this fourth that they have taken in this round in Chennai World and how they could have fixed it. But in every single day, going over every single mistake and feeling bad about it. They feel actively humiliated in front of others. They tend to blame each other for their loss, making them also have more infights. We think this is the point at which they lose their self-esteem. They don't notice the things that they are actually good at because they are so focused on this one thing as their main source of meaning of success. Meow doesn't realize how fucking smart he is for a cat. James doesn't realize how fucking hot he looks in a bikini. We think they have so many things to be proud of. We think they have many alternatives to search. They can go try and cook. Meow can try to teach other Pokemons to talk. People can find other hobbies to do. They can, I don't know, try to catch frogs and see how frogs are great, right? We think there are many things that they can find enjoyment in life. If they would stop obsessing over the one thing, they continue failing at. Why do we think under our side they do get this feeling of success? Firstly, the entirety of Lior's analysis that got no, check your notes, 0 rebuttals as to why they are likely to succeed catching other Pokemon. Because other Pokemon are weaker, are more vulnerable and unaware that they are being chased because they don't know Team Rocket already. Because Pokemon tend to evolve, so they can catch them when they are young and small and then evolve them to be stronger and use them to catch more Pokemon. Because they can have allies. They have worked with Ash in the past, meaning that if they stop trying to take his pet, he might even help them. He's all right with catching them all. He does it himself. Because they can have external aid because there are many trainers who know how to catch Pokemon and can help them. No one knows how to catch Pikachu because he's so unique. Yeah, I'll take a POI now.
Again, they don't catch stray Pokemon. They catch stronger Pokemon from either trainers or rare Pokemon. That's why success isn't likely.
Thanks. A, I analyzed why it is extremely likely that they will feel better even catching the small Pokemons. B, why it is likely that if they try with their smaller Pokemons, if they will grow to then get more stronger Pokemons because A, they will evolve them to help them, but B, they will be able to show success to their employer and then get even more crew to help them, more resources, etc. We think this is on our side as well. But lastly, even if they fail under our side, we think it's much better for several reasons. Firstly, they don't have the entirety of their personality and identity built on just one thing. It is much easier to fail at a small thing here, at a small thing there, when you don't think this is literally your life goal. B, because they are likely to also have more friendships, both between them amongst themselves when they don't blame each other continuously, but also with others, because they're not seen as someone who always is obsessed about one goal when people hate. Ash might even befriend them, and their gang might even befriend them. C, because they have also less of a likelihood, more people to vent to, right? If people in the workplace, when they go on the coffee shop breaks and vent about failing to catch Pikachu, it's just embarrassing because no one knows the struggle, no one does it. But just failing to catch Pokemon is something that all of their colleagues have experience with. They can vent it to others. The failure feels much, much less so. So I think they have more success comparatively on our side, but even if they fail, they feel better. Beg you to oppose.
I'd like to thank the speaker for what was an excellent speech and invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the case for side opposition. Hear, hear.
Am I audible? Just give me 1 second.
Audible.
Okay. Am I audible?
You're audible.
Fantastic. POIs in the chat. I'll try to take one around 5:30. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, some meta-analysis, and then I'm going to delve into the clash and expand on them fruitfully as they go along. A, notice the part that the DPM has completely dropped the idea of them being trainers who are focused on being competitive. And this is important because Team Rocket, specifically these 3 individuals, have never opted for a gym badge throughout the entirety of this series. This is important because this would also make them eligible to be able to compete within the leagues. This is where the whole competitive aspect of if catching enough Pokemon is supposed to be a consternation within the individual calculus actually comes into play. This is important because it establishes the fact that these individuals aren't focused on capturing all the Pokemon that essentially exist. Their individualistic intent in terms of their incentive is to basically bring some success to the organization whilst also staying together, maintaining their camaraderie, and also feeling somewhat invested in the goal that they're chasing. Gov is correct in saying that they want to avoid humiliation, but that is not the only consideration in this debate that has to be taken as a priority. And this is where Flora's analysis about staying together is a more important priority comes into play, because note, they're already failing on both counts in terms of the fact that they're incredibly incompetent. They aren't the best trainers. They aren't even the best battlers that would exist within the Pokemon constellation in terms of what can or what cannot exist. And this is precisely where the likelihood of failure is what Gov needed to fruitfully analyze in line with the incentives, the structure, and the incentives of what the leaders within Team Rocket essentially go into. Because Gov are only saying that they can chase strays, they can catch them and feel good about it. Note, catching strays is not something that is mutually exclusive to their side, because James has captured further Pokemon even when they have been chasing the goal of capturing Pikachu in and of itself, and he basically took a Weeping Bell and evolved it into a Victory Bell by and large. The goals, the assignments that are basically set to them are given to them by Team Rocket by and large. And this is particularly where the case comes into play. But note, first of all, our case is not contingent on them catching Pikachu, because what we essentially prioritize is them feeling invested in the goal, staying together, and feeling some semblance of happiness even whilst they're failing. This is particularly where Flora's analysis has not really been engaged with within the DPM speech. Secondly, and this is important in terms of even if analysis of what exactly happens, at the point at which they basically give up on their goal, 2 of the things are likely to happen. A, either they get fired, something that they had no engagement on from the DPM, or B, which probably is likely given the fact that Giovanni is still keeping them within Team Rocket, is the fact that they get assigned to another goal, they get assigned to a different assignment by and large. Now, Team Rocket does not go after strays randomly. They go after legendary Pokemon, rarer Pokemon, stronger Pokemon, try to kidnap Pokemon from trainers, try to take that off of them by and large, which is basically the incentive under which most of the assignments would be assigned to any members who would be going forward. Which essentially means that even Giovanni understands that Pikachu, as Ash's Pikachu, has some strength value. Whilst that's not the highest priority goal on Giovanni's list, it is a goal that is basically there as a more permanent thing because it hasn't been fulfilled. Which basically means that A, the other assignments that they're going to be tackling are going to be much more dangerous. Note also on the fact that Ash hasn't always been the most competent Pokemon trainer, has been susceptible to falling into relatively easy traps, and has been fairly vulnerable to a lot of their plans, almost having Pikachu captured on multiple occasions, noticeably only escaping because of the skin of his teeth or because he had help from either side. These are the things that Team Rocket have been able to highlight as reasons for their failure, which is also one of the reasons why they haven't been kicked off of Team Rocket by and large. So A, note, this is an actor motion. This is not from the audience perspective, which means if this is a more dangerous assignment, the reality of them being injured, the reality of death to Jessie and James and Meowth is something that is a real possibility. Again, an incentive that needs to be taken into consideration. But even if you don't take that into consideration, note the fact that at the point at which they've been relativistically failing more repetitively, they are likely to be reassigned and not kept together. And that is something that also needs to be taken into a highlight at the point at which you want to reduce the success. You want to reduce the plausibility and the perpetuity of failure. And that's basically the incentive under which Giovanni basically sends them off with different grunts who are more competitive, who are more competent, basically your Butches and Cassidy. And note, I want to particularly highlight, whilst the humiliation harms them, within the canonical reference of Pokemon, when James was about to walk off of the team and basically leave Jessie and Meowth in the dust, that's basically when Jessie showed the greatest amount of despair, knowing that she would be losing one of her best friends, the constant who had been stand at her side for by and large. This is basically where we say that even if none of the things happen, even if they're going to stay together when they go on to the other assignment, the fact that they've given up, the fact that they have basically eschewed on their one goal that was supposedly something that had been keeping them going is going to be a matter of personal loss and personal lack of investment, which essentially means that when they go on to the other task, the fact that they have given up is going to be a personal sense of humiliation, which is going to be weighing heavily on them, which means at the point at which they're likely to fail on their next task of tackling the next trainer, they're going to be taking that loss even more personally so. Whereas on our side of the house, given that this is a largely kids show under shown and arch type, the fact that you can chase a goal endlessly, the fact that you don't have to give up is essentially something that keeps them going, that keeps them repetitive, but also keeps them relevant within their own line in terms of how they can feel happier about their own constellation as well. The team spirit matters. Before that, POI.
The link that is missing on team government is why can't they find a new goal? Giving up is only something that they will be resentful of if they can just find a new thing to be inspired by.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that a lot of the new goals that they've tried to find any kind of competency in, they've also failed in whenever they've tried side hustles within the Pokemon anime as well. That's the whole point. They haven't been really competent in a lot of other jobs, which is why they're essentially grunts, as the info slide essentially entails, which is why the alternate forms of goals don't necessarily basically present themselves. They don't have that incentive into basically even training themselves when that can essentially exist, because that whole prioritization still exists in their head, but also the fact that they've been failing so repetitively is also something that makes them feel that they don't want to invest in any other kind of goal. But also the fact that the likelihood of their failure just harms them a lot more is also something that has been existing within them. The fact of the matter is that not a lot of individuals, knowing that they are Team Rocket, aren't likely to trust them and give them a lot of opportunities as well, which is why them staying together, the fact that they can chase this goal and even share in some of Ash's glory when they help them tackle some kind of otherworldly threats that can essentially exist, basically makes them feel happier as individuals, better as individuals, and gives them some share of the scraps of the success that can exist, but most of all keeps them together, keeps them happier on a comparable level. Never been prouder to oppose.
I'd like to thank the speaker for it was an excellent speech and invite the government whip to conclude the case for side government. Hear, hear.
Am I audible?
You're audible.
Great. I'm going to start in 3, 2, wait, water. I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. Look, panel, we think there are 2 reasons mainly that opposition has already lost this debate. The first is that we think they are 100% non-comparative. I understand that there are some harms to giving up on going after Pikachu. We accept. The question is where there are more harms and when there's the option for change. No analysis on-site opposition on how anything changes, how you stop feeling the humiliation that is included in chasing after Pikachu and how you get over these things and why it's not just a whole lifetime of a cycle of trying something and failing. Given that, we just don't think they're comparative in any way. Second, we know that Team Rocket has many, that specifically Jessie, James, and Meowth have many competing interests. Maybe they care about friendship. Maybe they care about success. Maybe they care about other things, but we don't assume. We analyze to you why it is that they likely care about success over all things. And no, it wasn't a framing of they are trainers. It was a framing of they live in a world which is competitive, which means that everything is measured based on success and failure, whether you win or lose, whether you do your goals, which is why success is the reason is more likely to be what they're chasing after and what is more important to them in the long term over other things. So I think I'm going to have 2 clashes in this. I'm going to have the question of humiliation and where it is worse, and success and where it is more likely. But first, let's talk about friendship a second. Look, the only reason they give us for this friendship being over is that they're going to be reassigned and not kept together. Other than that, I don't understand why it's true. Their own analysis of spending 24 hours together all the time and having been doing this for generations and having been together and how much they care about it means it's unlikely that they just fall apart if they're not chasing Pikachu. And on being reassigned, we just think that's unlikely for a few reasons. A, they still work best together and know each other and know each other's strengths and weaknesses, which is why Giovanni, if he reassigns them, has an incentive to keep them together. Taking them apart means taking apart other teams that are already working together, which means that it's just not worth it for him to retrain these people. Lastly, he knows they care a lot and might quit. And this is the thing, if they care about it as deeply as opposition say, then he's just going to lose a team that he obviously thinks is good enough to keep on board, even though they keep failing with Pikachu, right? But lastly, we just think that even if they are reassigned and not kept together, doesn't necessarily mean they're not friends, right? They're colleagues. They're still going to come back to headquarters once they're done with assignments and talk. They're probably going to have healthier relationships now that they don't also need to, aren't also affected by each other's failures and don't need to nag and point out and blame each other all the time. And we think that friendships evolve, even if you don't spend all your time together, we can still be friends, and we just don't know why everything is horrible. When Jessie was going to leave, it was out of anger and not a decision they made together. If they do make this decision together, that's a completely different situation. Let's talk about feelings of humiliation, right? Government's main case is to say, giving up on a goal is humiliating. And while we can accept that giving up on a goal is humiliating, we just think it is more humiliating to continuously try and go after the same goal and always fail. We think they bring up that if you need to admit failure to your colleagues, you're going to be made fun of and you're going to have a reputation in society for having given up. But you know what? If everyone understands failing. No one understands, everyone understands failing. No one succeeds at everything they try all the time. No one wins every single debate they compete in. No one wins every single competition. What people don't understand is going after and doing exactly the same thing over and over again and not trying different tactics. People don't understand that, and therefore when they come back to headquarters again and again after having tried to capture specifically Pikachu, they go, oh no, these people again, too bad, they're such failures. No one wants to associate with them because they never succeed and never do anything good. We show you why on our side, they are likely to actually succeed, even if it's at small things at first. And then we also explain to you why those small achievements are likely to trickle down into larger ones, because they catch Pokemon that aren't as good, but they evolve over time and they make them better. And we think that they have the skills to do that because Meowth can teach them, for example, is incredibly intelligent. We think that now that they are not considering only their family failures and blaming themselves all the time, they can also take note of what's good about themselves and therefore make that and do those things better. So, and also it just doesn't happen every single day and every single time you fail. It's just once, and we think that just makes it less humiliating over time. But second of all, they say that they will continue to fail because they're likely to get harder tasks. It's really not clear to me why they are actually likely to get harder tasks from Giovanni. If he sees that they've been failing and they're giving up, he's likely to not give them the prestigious tasks and give them the easier ones, which they're more likely to do well. But second of all, no matter what other task they get, even if it's more difficult, we think that they're likely to be more successful at it because they are not banking everything on it, because they're not under pressure. It's why the best speeches you ever give aren't when you have to win the debate. It's not when if you fail this, then you lose everything, or that you're humiliated again and again. But it's rather when you think you're going to succeed. So we think that you just get completely less humiliation on our side because it's not all the time. People understand you better, etc. But then there's the question of success and where you will be more successful. So they say that Giovanni will fire them, but insofar as they're so good at their job that they're forgiven for wasting so many resources, and he thinks that they still have these good qualities of perseverance and everything, we think that he's going to understand if they don't want to continue failing and failing and failing again and again. He thinks that he will want to continue to utilize their good qualities and send them on other tasks, and he's not likely to fire them. But even if he does fire them, they're going to be able to show themselves as reformed to others, and they're likely to extend and try to help them succeed in a thing that isn't horrible. Before I continue, I'll take a POI.
I mean, that doesn't fly well with Giovanni's characterization, but also you've inserted a new mech in the whip. Why would Giovanni be understanding at the point at which you already analyzed that he has been?
It's not a new mech, it's your analysis. You say that Giovanni puts a lot of, believes that they're good and have good qualities and they are persevering. The fact that they have persevered this long doesn't change if they now understand that maybe they can't be best placed to do this. That's your analysis, it's not a new mech. So I just think the bottom line of your analysis is different from what you think it is. But second, we explain to you why they are likely to actually be successful at things. They're likely to not only focus on their bad qualities. They're likely to have better teamwork when they're not constantly blaming each other, when they have easier tasks and when they're able to do all these things. They say that we get from government that they can still do that and it's not mutually exclusive, but that doesn't answer any of Lior's analysis on why it is, on why you're spending time, why you're spending resources, why you're spending mental load, because all you're doing is obsessing over specifically Pikachu and trying to get to that. they don't contend at any point with how those things are mutually exclusive, and therefore you can only do those on our side. But lastly, they don't contend with the fact that you're just, when you put all of your identity on a single thing, as opposed to many different things and many different Pokemon you're trying to catch, even if you fail, the sting of failure hurts less, and therefore, both on the counts of humiliation and on the counts of where you're likely to be successful, and on when your friendship is actually better, we think we win.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that excellent speech and invite the opposition whip to conclude the case for side opposition and indeed the debate as a whole. Hear, hear.
Hi. Hello, can I be seen and heard?
You are both audible and visible.
Cool. Give me 1 second, just starting up my timer, organizing my notes. Okay. 3, 2, 1. The biggest problem with the government team is a lot of their benefits and understanding of how this debate works are contingent upon the idea that these benefits are likely to accrue. And secondly, that these benefits are likely to be valuable to the context of the actors in this motion. Note that we give you constant characterization about why success is not likely to happen, and particularly why it's going to be problematic for them to get out of this, it's going to be problematic for them to give up on this mission, both on just a career level and on a level as a team and friends in general, which is probably one of the most important things in the debate, which they just sort of don't really talk about in this situation. But I'm going to sort of engage this on a couple of lines of analysis first, right? First, a couple of clarifications out of the way. So the first thing I think the panel sort of needs to look at in this debate is what's necessarily important to Team Rocket. Is it this idea of success or fulfillment? Flora and Whozair both give you like a number of reasons why it's likely that they're more likely going to care about fulfillment in this scenario. There's a couple of reasons for this. It's just that this mission for capturing Pikachu is what keeps them together. Career-wise, it's what helps them like stay in this position where they're able to explore different regions and they're actively able to go out of their way and look in these regions, right? And secondly, it just sort of keeps their friendship alive, which is something that's particularly important to them and something that's unique to them. All the alternatives that have been pointed out by government within this debate, A, don't necessarily come about for reasons I'm going to talk about in a bit, but secondly, probably aren't going to be as important to them in terms of why success is likely to be like this thing that they care about, right? Because their analysis sort of relies on this idea that they're going to lose self-esteem and they're probably going to get a lot of humiliation within this scenario. And, you know, if they do smaller tasks, it's probably going to be better for them. This fundamentally ignores the characterization we've given to you about both Team Rocket and Giovanni as a person, right? They come in and talk about this idea that Giovanni probably finds them valuable within the situation, that, you know, oh, he's probably going to assign them together and assign them to do easier tasks. Note that's not how Team Rocket as an organization functions. Lower level grunts probably go on much more dangerous missions. They go on much more dangerous stuff, right? It's not as simple as them being trainers and going out and catching Pokemon. They go and like look for legendary Pokemon, right? Like the other Team Rocket we see in the anime, Butch and Cassidy, they go after Lugia and get the shit blasted out of them, right? And just generally lower level grunts have a much more dangerous job in terms of what they do. So it's going to be a lot more problematic for them. And Giovanni's probably going to be much less forgiving in this scenario, right? So the question then becomes, is success likely to happen? And we give you 4 different reasons as to what the likely scenario is going to be in this case, right? But first, let's deal with what government provides to you, right? Because they provide a couple of reasons. They drop the idea of trainers, and I think that's been pretty dealt with, so I don't need to talk about that. They talk about this idea that, you know, they can find fulfillment from like catching smaller Pokemon and necessarily going out of their way to do easier tasks, right? I think it's going to fuck up their career quite bad if they go to Giovanni after years of trying to capture Pikachu and just say, hey, here's this Caterpie, here's this Magikarp, we caught this is the best we could do. They're probably going to be either A, kicked out of the organization, which is the worst case scenario. And given the nature of Pokemon society, where you kind of need to become a trainer from a pretty early age to become successful in any way, shape, or form, it's probably unlikely you're going to find that success. B, you're going to be they're going to be put together, but in situations that is going to likely be fucking dangerous. They're going to be lower level grunts put in situations where they have to take on legendary Pokemon or things that are actively going to put their lives in harm's way. Or C, and this is something particularly important, which they don't like properly contend with, which is the idea that they might be separated. Look, they talk about the idea that they can probably still maintain their friendship, meet up at headquarters. Like, it seems pretty unlikely that if Giovanni doesn't see value within them, he's going to like keep them in a situation where they have jobs where they report to headquarters. Like most lower level grunts are like kept in certain stations within the region and are actively told to, you know, go steal Pokemon from this trainer. And this is where the characterization of Ash and other trainers is particularly important. Ash as a person is a pretty nice dude, so he doesn't really like, you know, treat Team Rocket like shit, but other trainers are probably not going to be as forgiving towards this and probably be much more violent within this scenario. So that sort of harm comes particularly on their side of the house. So success is unlikely to happen within this scenario where these are the only sort of options that are available to them, because if they fail in their main mission, this is going to be problematic. But the second and probably more important thing is what is more important, which is the idea of fulfillment and why this mission is particularly important. Look, in the latest season of the Pokemon anime, Team Rocket actually captured Pikachu. Like, this is a thing that happened within the anime. Like, they had him for like a full 2 episodes, but they kind of fucked it up and like dropped him off, right? This didn't demotivate them. This actively made it so that they got a lot more motivated in this scenario and went and did it. It was years of hard work that essentially paid off for that one moment. Even that one moment for them was particularly important. And this is where the characterization of Team Rocket themselves are particularly important. These are 3 friends who have grown throughout time and they've actively gone out of their way to do this, right? It's not like they didn't have other opportunities to go and do other stuff, right? James comes from a very rich household and he had like a very like huge inheritance, which he could have gotten as he went. Jessie had a really fucking successful career as a pageant contestant in Diamond and Pearl, as well as the Hoenn region. But they chose to give up those things. Those are things that would have left them to a better life and led them to have privilege. If it was likely that they cared about success within this scenario, and it's likely they wanted to pursue other career paths, they would have. Jessie was faced with the option of whether or not she wants to continue being a pageant success within the Sinnoh region, for example, and she chose not to because she wanted to go out of her way and actively like still pursue the capture of Pikachu, because this is a goal that unites these 3 as individuals and unites these 3 as a team within this scenario. So this is something they look towards, and if other careers were fulfilling to them, they probably would have sought it out a lot sooner and left the organization within that scenario to do these things. So it's unlikely that they're going to likely want to do this in the first place and actively go and do these things. James can't go back and now get his inheritance. Jessie can't be a pageant contestant anymore. They made that trade-off knowing that they won't be able to go back because they care so much about this goal. Before I move on, I'll quickly take a POI.
Since you can see that they've had many alternatives, probably what's important to them is not losing their job, so thank you for the concession. If you say what's important for them is their goal of success, yes, they thought when they started that they will succeed. We proved what they fail and continue will failing at it. So we think that your metric is better served than our side.
Not really. So it's the idea I'm trying to prove here isn't that, they have options or trying to prove success. They give up on these opportunities in the first place. Like, these opportunities don't just come back to them and they don't necessarily just present themselves after years of not doing this stuff, right? It's probably likely that they gave this up for a reason. Success doesn't matter to them. It's the point I'm trying to make here, that within their characters and within what they care about within their ethos as a team, they willingly trade off success literally every single time they have the opportunity to do so from a very early age. Team Rocket means that much to them. Their friendship means that much to him, and that camaraderie means that much to him. There's one side of this debate that actively puts that at stake and actively makes it so that these people are going to be unable to be together within this scenario because of all the reasons that we've given to you that just haven't been engaged with on the idea of what Team Rocket is as an organization and what's likely to happen to them because of their standing within the organization. Like, they're not high-level people. They're grunts who have been put on this mission because Giovanni, for some reason, like 7 years ago, saw some value in this fucking Pikachu. But because that value is there, it's what's kept them together and what has actively made an advantage for them. Look, panel, at the end of the debate, it's important to weigh these things up. Government is contingent on the success happening. We've given you multiple reasons why this is unlikely to happen. Teamwork and friendship is the most important thing to these people. They traded off success a long time ago. They traded off these reasons for being there in the first place. And in Team Rocket's case, they don't need to catch them all. They only care about the one. Give it to opposition.
I'd like to thank the speaker for that fine speech, and indeed everyone for what was a really interesting debate. I think that we're adjudicating in here. Jerry, is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Everyone else should just leave.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cool. If you want to take like a minute just to get your thoughts in order, and then we will start the discussion.